Hello, third graders. I'm having such a good time using my reading skills to learn things about the world. I'm really enjoying reading this book, Exploring the Desert. And I'm also really enjoying the questions you guys are coming up with based on what we've been reading in this text. For instance, Jalen asked, how do animals survive in the desert? And I think that's a great question. It is so dry, and we know all living things need water, so how do they do it? I think the author started to even answer that question in the text, so we'll go back and look. We definitely know that the author answered this question. Does it snow or rain in the desert? Both Elliot and Oliver asked that question yesterday, and I bet they can answer it too. And then Nell asked, do plants grow in Antarctica? Yesterday we learned that Antarctica, even though it's not hot, is a desert because it's so dry. Lulu's very excited too about this text. But Nell's question here about do plants grow in Antarctica really made me start to think about plants in general. We know just like animals need water to survive, so do plants. So I asked the question, how do plants survive in any desert environment? And what we're going to do today is we're going to read some more of the book. But first, there's some of these questions we can Okay, so the first question I want us to look at is this one, the one Elliot and Oliver asked. Does it snow or rain in the desert? So we read yesterday in this chapter called Dry Land, a dry land, about it raining in the desert. It says that animals like camels are suited to live in harsh conditions of a desert. The world's deserts are the driest places on earth. Deserts get less than 10 inches of rain each year. So that's answering the question. Deserts get, remember we always answer our questions in full sentences. Deserts get less than 10 inches of rain each year. Now let's see if it says in this text anything about snow in the desert. And I'm going to go to where we were talking about Antarctica. Deserts can be hot or cold. Antarctica is a cold desert. Temperatures stay far below freezing in winter. Thick fur or feathers protect animals from the cold. So here we know that a cold place like Antarctica is really cold because it's so dry is also considered a desert, but it doesn't tell us how often it snows in Antarctica. So we will continue to think about that part of the question as we read on. But did you hear when I was just reading? A couple times it talked about Jalen's question of how do animals survive in the desert. Just now I read thick fur or feathers protect animals from the cold. So I'm going to go ahead and write that, and I'm going to write it in my own words. Animals have thick fur or feathers to protect from the cold, to protect in cold temperatures. Now, as I was reading before, when I was answering this question, I also read a little bit about camels. Do you remember? Where was I? Here. Animals like camels are suited to live in the harsh conditions. The world's deserts is the driest places. So it did talk, but if I go up here, but the camel will travel many miles before it needs to take a drink. Its body is made to live in a land where water is hard to find. So it's telling me that the camel has adapted to the desert environment, but it hasn't yet told me how. But here, in the desert biome, it says, desert plants and animals depend on each other for survival. Desert plants provide shelter and food for desert animals. Okay, that's not exactly the answer to that question. In hot deserts, animals hide under rocks or in holes during the day. So animals hide, or I'll say animals take shelter during hot desert days. So now we have a little bit of information, right, about how different animals survive in those different desert environments. So today what we're going to do is we're going to keep reading and we're going to look for the answers to some of these questions. But didn't we answer this one already too? How do plants survive in any desert environment? Remember we were reading yesterday, Saving Water, where it said because rain is so rare in the desert, plants must store water. Well, that's one way that plants survive in the desert. Plants can store water when it rains. So we've already gotten some answers to out of the 4 questions we've already asked. Today I'm going to read, right now, I'm going to read the next chapter. And when I'm done reading the next chapter, which is chapter 3, Desert Animals, I want you to ask one question about desert animals. Now, when you're asking questions, I want it to be specifically, look at that thing! I want the question to specifically be about what I'm reading in this chapter. So this will not be the time to ask questions about plants or people. You are only asking a question about desert animals from the text. So I see right away, first of all, very scary picture. I bet to some of you it's not scary though. That's an opinion of mine. I see some bolded words, some special print that tells me they'll be in the... That's right, in the glossary, the definitions, and I also see a caption. I'm going to start with reading the words in the glossary so I can start my mind thinking about what I'm going to learn in this section. The first word is prey. I think I know what that means, but I'm going to turn to the glossary anyway. Just check it out. Prey, an animal hunted by another animal. So we're going to learn about one animal eating another. Fantastic. The next word is abdomen. Abdomen is the end section of an insect's body. Okay, let's get started reading. Mice and tortoises are just a couple of the animals that have learned to survive in the desert. Desert bugs are fierce fighters. They have to be tough to live in the dry land. Scorpions jab their prey with poisonous stingers. The stink bug shoots enemies with a smelly spray. The desert tarantula has stinging hairs on its abdomen. If a bird or snake gets too close, the tarantula flicks hairs into the animal's eyes and blinds it. That's disturbing. Other desert insects are gentler. Butterflies flip between flowers. They drink the blossom's nectar. Colorful butterflies stand out in the brown desert. I never thought about there being butterflies in the desert. A desert tarantula has tiny hairs all over its body. Want another look? Ooh. Would not want to meet that thing in the desert for sure. I see right away another word, and we know this word because we read a book about reptiles, but just to get our minds fresh, I'm going to read the definition. Reptile, a cold-blooded animal with a backbone. Scales cover a reptile's body. Scaly, spiky, and bumpy, reptiles thrive in the desert. That means they not only survive, but they flourish. They do really well. Reptiles thrive in the desert. They have watertight skin. Their skin doesn't sweat, so they don't lose water. Scritch, scritch. The claws of a lizard scrape against the sand. The nervous lizard scrambles towards a bush. A nearby snake slithers to a stop. The snake senses the lizard. With a snap of its powerful jaws, the snake grabs the lizard and swallows it whole. A sidewinding adder snake swallows a lizard in Africa's Namib Desert. That is even scarier than the tarantula. Kangaroo rat. I approve of that. When a Gila monster bites its prey, deadly venom from its jaws flows into the animal. Somehow I'm thinking this might be the predator and that might be the prey. Another hunter crawls along the desert floor. A Gila monster searches for a meal. The red and black lizard finds a kangaroo rat hiding beneath a bush. With quick gulps, the Gila monster gobbles up its prey. I thought that was going to happen. Oh, next little section, subheading, desert animals hunt at night. During the hot day, many animals hide in cool burrows or under shady rocks. Remember, we already have that on here. But when the sun goes down, desert animals come out. High above in the dark sky, a brown bat flies overhead. In the shadows, a lean coyote sniffs the air. It catches the scent of a mouse. And that caption says, coyotes hunt at night in the desert when it's cooler. Now that's telling me one way that animals have adapted to survive in the desert. Desert animals, they hunt in the cool nights. Running after prey in the hot of the desert day seems like torture. So I think that hunting at night is a great way to adapt. Field note, scorpions are night hunters. Size, 2 to 3 inches long. Color, yellow, brown. Food, insects, spiders, other scorpions. We would not want to meet that either in the desert night. From a small hole in the giant cactus, an elf owl's round eyes scan the ground below. A speckled grasshopper leaps from a bush. In a swift dive, the tiny owl snatches the grasshopper and silently flaps back to its nest. As the sun rises, night animals go back to their nests and burrows. During the night, few animals found water, but they aren't thirsty. To live in a dry land, desert animals need very little water. An elf owl peeks out from its nest in a cactus, and there it is, that cutie. And we just did learn another adaptation or another way animals survive. Desert animals don't need a lot of water. You guys, look at all the information we're getting from Jalen's question. This is another thing that makes this question such a strong question. It's not so specific that we weren't going to get a lot of information, like how much rain happens in the desert. The way they asked this question, does it rain in the desert? We could have said yes, but we decided to give more information. But this is such a broad topic that we're getting so much information. That makes it a really strong question. We're thinking as we're reading, not just about things we want to know, but how we're going to get the most information. Nice job, Jalen. So what I want you to do now is you're going to pause the video and in your journals, right under where you started working yesterday, write today's date, which is 5-5-20, and write one question about desert animals. Now, be specific about animals. Don't just ask any question about the desert. Ask a question that has something to do with the section we just read. When you're done, unpause the video and come back. We're going to read another chapter today. Okay, third graders, welcome back. I cannot wait to read those amazing questions that you just wrote. We're going to start reading this chapter. We're going to read the first two sections of the chapter, and we'll finish the rest tomorrow. But this one is called People and the Desert. So I can right away see let me see that, a bolded word, and that tells me that that word's in the glossary. So before I get started reading, I'm going to take a look in the glossary for caravan. Caravan is a group of people traveling together. A man wearing a blue turban guides his camel across the sandy floor of Africa's Sahara Desert. So if you take a look at the man right there, the head covering he has, that's a turban. And he's in the Sahara Desert. The man belongs to a group of people called the Tuareg. I hope I'm saying that right. The blue people of the desert. The dark dye of their turbans rubs off onto their skin. For thousands of years, the Tuaregs were nomads moving from place to place. So you can use the context clues in that sentence to help you know what a nomad is. But a nomad is a person or a group of people who don't have a settled home, but they travel around for reasons of hunting or to find resources that they need. They never settle in one spot, but travel around. Their caravans of camels took goods like spices and grains across the Sahara Desert. In recent times, many Tuaregs have settled along the edges of the Sahara. Droughts made it hard to find food for their camels. Droughts is when whatever the usual rain pattern is ceases, where whatever rain you're supposed to get, it gets a lot less. So you're not getting as much rain as you normally do. Droughts made it hard to find food for their camels. Wars made it dangerous to live in some places of the desert. Tuaregs and their camels travel long distances across Africa's Sahara Desert. Incredible that they can survive in that environment. And for thousands of years, it said. Okay, the next section and the last section we're going to read today is People Affect Desert. And I don't see any bolded words, so I don't need to look anything up in the glossary. I'm just going to get started reading. People in the desert must be careful to protect the plants and animals living there. People might not realize the effect they have on the desert. By destroying desert plants, people harm desert animals. Animals that eat the plants no longer have food or shelter. If people kill desert animals like tarantulas or other spiders, larger animals that eat the spiders have to find other food to eat. Even though a rocky, dry desert looks tough, it's a delicate place. Hikers should stay on trails in the desert. When people wander off trails, they might accidentally crush a cactus. Hikers who aren't careful might trample over the burrows of mice or lizards, causing the animals' underground homes to collapse. Fact: aliens have come to the desert in the United States. Aliens? Aliens aren't a fact? Let's keep reading. Alien plants, that is. The tumbleweed and salt cedar are not native to American deserts, Both plants were accidentally brought from Asia and Europe in the 1800s and the early 1900s. So here when they're using the word alien, they just mean non-indigenous, not native to that area. And here the caption says, people who hike in deserts should stay on trails so they don't disrupt plants and animals. Wow. We can do harm even when we don't know it. We're finding that out in all of these books. We're reading about the balance between animals and people. I wonder if you have a question about that. Now it's your turn to write your last question of the day. So when you turn your work in today, and I hope I get it today so that I can add some more questions to our chart. When you turn in your work today, you will have 2 questions written. One you already wrote about animals, and this last one you're going to write about people. So you might write about how people live on and off the deserts, like the Tuareg people. Or you might ask a question about how people affect the desert. Whichever you choose, write 2 if you want. I'd love to have 3 questions. Pause the video. We'll stop the video because we're done now. Write your question. Text or email me or your teacher what your questions are, and hopefully we'll get them on the chart. All right, third graders, can't wait to read what you write today. It's been great reading this book about deserts with you. We're going to finish it off tomorrow and maybe do some more research about the deserts. I think they're really cool places. All right, third graders, take care, and we'll talk soon.